Welcome to episode 2 of Red on Air. This week we're going to be talking about adventuring and long-distance paddling. We've got a guest joining us in the show, and we'll be talking about an event that started here locally here in South Devon near Red HQ, but is going global this year. Welcome back to Red HQ. I'm John.
Hello, and I'm George. Great to see you guys, and thanks for joining.
So, last time on Red on Air, we were talking about voyages and our V-hole and about maybe extending your paddle sessions a little bit longer than just what you may be doing already. And it got us thinking that actually we've done a fair bit of adventure paddling ourselves, and as the sport's progressed, we've ended up we see more people using it as a tool, not only just to travel distance and do their own challenges, but also for training as well. And we've got someone on the line and we're coming up who's using it for training. Yeah,
absolutely. So we've got Justin joining us very shortly, actually, to really dive into it. If you don't know who Justin Packshaw is, you soon will. We're going to be diving into everything that he's done, but in short, he's gone to pretty much every corner of the globe, including up Everest and to both poles several times. And he's got an amazing mission right now coming up in partnership with the European Space Agency and NASA as well. But before we just bring Justin on here, I think it's really important to bring it back down to actually everyone can get involved in adventures. And actually, a lot of people watching this, we know in the Red Paddle Code board owners group, if you're part of that online, we see lots of conversation going on about people paddling in new locations and things. John over here is actually quite experienced in this area in terms of long distance paddle. You did a Divisor to Westminster race. So how was that? How did you go about getting into that?
Okay, well, so Divisor to Westminster, for those that don't know, is the clue's in the title. It's from a town called Divisor all the way to Westminster Bridge in London, and it's actually traditionally a kayak race. And it was, I think, started back in the 30s. I might be wrong, but 30s, around that sort of time, as an adventure for kayakers. And I got a wind of it. I heard about it in early 2000s. I got into paddleboarding, and I just contacted the organisers and said, could we do it on a paddleboard? They actually didn't know what paddleboarding was at the time, so it was 2009.
Yes.
I actually had to go and do a trial for them and do a speed test, because they were really worried about us hitting the time cut-offs. So
I imagine you were as well.
I was very worried about hitting the time cut-offs, yeah. And it was 126 miles on 4 days, so 30 miles plus a day. I think the one thing that I realised from that obviously is there is no replacement for decent training.
Yeah.
And I was leaving the office. We just started Red Paddle Code, so we were working pretty long hours. We've been very busy. I'd leave the office in the January and the February and just go for a few lengths up and down the local river, basically in the dark, to try and get my miles up. I've really struggled to do that actually and get enough time, but it was an amazing experience actually paddling. And I'd never actually. So with my training paddles, I think probably longest was like 6, maybe 8 miles.
Out of 126, close.
And the first day was 32 miles or something.
Yeah.
Crazy. So I'm just I'm a competitive person that I just hit whatever that start line and just started paddling and didn't stop until I crossed the finish line at the end of the day. But I was pretty tired, to be honest, at the end of all that. But it's an amazing experience. I think it's as much a physical enterprise. It is mental actually, and the mental side of it really kind of is something you have to work on.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'm terrible at preparation when it comes to challenges, and I think everyone in the office here and anyone who knows me knows that I normally just go all in. So I feel like Justin's going to be able to give us both tips on this, and also a lot of you watching. Now, the most important thing with these lives is that we are engaging with you all, and we'd love to hear your questions for Justin as we talk through it. We'll be getting to them all at the end, but also John's got his laptop just down next to us here, so if we see them come in, we'll try and feed them into Justin as well. And let's get into it. So we'll play a little video now just to introduce who Justin is, and we'll be bringing him on.
Camp 2, and when you look down, there's the view.
Hello, okay, Justin, hello.
Hey guys, hello John, hi George, how are you both?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, it's very good to see you again, and under slightly different circumstances, and the fact that we're all locked down in the UK. So yeah,
I know it's so bizarre, isn't it? When I just looking at those little clips that you had, I mean, my God, bring it all back. That's what I say.
I mean, looking at those clips, you know, you've literally been to every. There's very few people can claim they've been to every corner of the globe, and I mean, you know, you've gone to all these places. I think the question, as soon as we thought about doing this, and you know, you said that you were up for coming and chatting to all of the Red Paddle Co. Crew around the world, is really how on earth did you start? Where was the starting point for you?
It's a good question, George. I was very lucky. I grew up in the Mediterranean. I grew up on a little island called Malta. And my folks were really into the outdoors. They were big sailors. And so we sailed from pretty much, you know, from the moment I was born, I was sailing. And I'm the youngest of 4 kids. So my siblings were always sort of, you know, I was trying to keep up with them, catch up with them. And that's where it all started, really. It was the outdoors and pushing myself and learning and being a part of a team has been something which I've always aspired to. And you know, I'm in my 50s now, and I'm quite lucky that dream that I had when I was small, I was able to follow it on. And like you guys, you know, I gravitate toward the sea, really. The sea is my greatest love. And I've been lucky enough to sort of, you know, carry that on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess coming from a sailing background, same, John and I both came from a windsurfing background as well. A lot of people watching this is potentially, when you're in paddleboarding, there's an element of being self-sufficient, which I think also comes from that sailing world, and the fact that if you're faced with a problem, you're floating so effectively in the middle of nowhere, and you've got to get from A to B.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Sorry, Justin.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree, George. I mean, it's funny. You guys got me into paddleboarding, really, and I think that the whole aspect of, you know, what does adventure? You know, what is adventuring? Adventuring is really just stepping into the unknown and going and having some fun, really, and exploring. And I think there's very few vehicles as apt at allowing you to do that than paddleboarding. Yeah. And then throw in the fact that you can. It's very easy to do, to carry, to set up, and the freedom it gives you. And then from my side, what I love is you get bloody fit, and I think that's amazing. You know, your core strength is phenomenal, which is what much of what I need for my training is around core strength. So it ticks so many boxes. Fantastic.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, as John was saying, to paddle a distance, even, you know, to go on a long distance paddle. I know you use it very much in your training mix, or when you're doing these expeditions. Like I say, it really does develop out the core, and it's kind of light on the body as well. Unlike running or something like that, you know, there's no impact on the joints, which is, I think, you know, fantastic in terms of going on, staying healthy, staying well for many years to come, and going on more adventures.
And also it's not mundane. You know, every time you get on your paddleboard, it's different. Do you know what I mean? You have a different adventure. You know, sometimes I take one of our dogs. I don't know. Every time is a joy. It's a joy. It doesn't feel like it's working.
How do you connect that to when you're then, you know, going on an expedition? For me, just sitting here thinking about going to somewhere like, you know, up Everest, for example. Let's take Everest as our example. At what point did you just go, yeah, actually, I can take this on? I know you had a stint in the military. Was that something that kind of took you there, or was it more just a case of like a longing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, from my side, I was very lucky in that my folks really installed in all of us that follow your dreams. You know, whatever you feel you can do, you know, go and give it a go. Even if you fail, go and give it a go. And when I was little, I was very intrigued, as I guess a lot of people are, with old school explorers, the Shackletons, the Amundsens of this world. And I've been lucky to go and replicate most of those trips. And if you think, you know, only 100 years ago, just over 100 years ago, no one had been to the North, no one had been to the South Pole, and no one had been to the top of Everest. And so it's not, you know, that's almost just one generation. And so I kind of started following that route. The military definitely helped with me. I mean, I was in the army for 10 years, and they kind of give you the opportunity to kind of cut your cloth, hone your skills. You start learning about some of the things that you guys were talking about, your preparation and planning and all that kind of nonsense. And I've just started, I started pretty small. I was lucky I sailed for Britain when I was quite young. Ended up doing the America's Cup and Whitbread, and it sort of all just carried on from there, really.
Yeah, well, absolutely. From a preparation side of things, you touched on it there. Just looking at that clip as you were talking of you right on the ridge at the top of Everest, by the looks of things there. In terms of preparation, how much of it runs through your mind before you do these trips of actually what might happen in the worst case scenario versus planning for always the best case?
Again, a good question. I think the military is very good at building your perception as to how you must do these things. And I think if you're going to do anything which has an element of uncertainty around it, then the more planning you do, the more you think about the eventualities of something going wrong, the easier it is. I mean, certainly on Everest or any of those big mountains, or if you're doing anything in the Arctic or Antarctica. I mean, obviously, if something goes wrong, it's difficult for you to be casevac'd out. So you just have to think about it. And I think with all these things, getting yourself in the best physical and mental shape you can always helps. I mean, certainly if you're doing something which is going to be, above and beyond the normal kind of physicality that you
Yeah, I mean, it's just phenomenal. Thinking about, me taking on my first paddleboard adventure, same for you, John, when you took on your first paddleboard adventure, there was this element of naivety, I guess, as well, that came with an adventure, in the fact that, like John was saying about that long distance paddle, it was the same for me when I did my first challenge. In terms of building up, did you do much, again, taking Everest or one of the pole trips, did you do much building up to it, or was it kind of all or nothing for you?
I think they're all a baptism of fire. I mean, I think ignorance is... I really do. I think we're all, us guys are all cut from the same cloth. Anyone who steps into these things, it's always, you're super excited. I mean, I'm still... I mean, as you alluded at the beginning, I've got a huge trip coming up, and at 56, I'm super excited about it, as I would have been if I was 40, 18, 20. Yeah. And I think that's, I mean, look, I think with all these things, what you guys are creating an amazing vehicle to start people on that kind of an adventure, wherever it takes them, however far it takes them. And I find that, we all dream, so many people dream of doing things. It just, there's something that restricts them from saying, yes, I'll actually go and step into that. I think you just need those little vehicles, really. And I think, throughout this pandemic, it's sort of become much more prevalent for us all to really kind of look at these things and say, no, you know what, I'm going to actually do it. I'm going to do it as soon as I can. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to do this. I've been thinking about it. I've been, salivating about
Absolutely.
Even if you don't know how to do it, I'm learning to fly at the moment, and it's good for you. It's good to step into the unknown and sort of go, Christ, I'm starting right at the beginning, and it's it's terribly wholesome and it's very good for you. I think it's an important thing.
I think you kind of touched on it there, Justin. The one of the best things about paddleboarding is you can start quite small. You don't need to go to Mount Everest, to learn to climb the mountain. You can build up your distance over time, and what to you today feels like a big distance in months to come feels like a quick sprint, because you get more used to it. And I think that's one of the best things about paddleboarding. Actually, it is the ability to have an adventure on your local spot, on your doorstep almost, and just build it and build it and build it.
Yeah.
We've got an event locally. I think maybe you want to. Yeah,
actually, I would love to, Justin, dive more into your trip coming up and really get into that, and also how you're training and things at the moment. But just whilst we're talking about adventures, there is an event which has always been a local event to us here just next to Red HQ down to the river. But this year they're blowing it out on a global scale. And so we're just going to hand over to Robin. She's going to give a quick run through of it, and then we'll be straight back and keep your questions coming in for Justin. We'll be interrogating him a little bit more about all the trips to come. So over to you, Robin.
Thanks, guys. So the Head of the Dart is an annual SUP challenge, and having paddled it myself a couple of times on the Dragon board with the girls from the office, I can testify it's an awesome experience. But this year it's going online for an even bigger challenge. Over the course of April and May, the Head of the Dart team are encouraging the community to come together to paddle the lengths of the longest rivers in each continent, making a total of 33,600 kilometres. Approximately 100 participants have already signed up. Brendan Prince, who is attempting the Longman Paddle 2021, a circumnavigation around Britain, has already committed to paddle 2,500 kilometres, and that's just for himself. People have signed up for over 6,000 kilometres, which is roughly about a quarter of a way down the River Nile, so we're not quite there yet. There are 24 SUP clubs signed up to take part already, so if you fancy upping your paddling game this year and want to help the community reach this massive distance, then it's easy to sign up. It doesn't matter how far you pledge to paddle, whether it's 5k or 50, every distance counts. Just pop on over to the website and sign up and get paddling.
Brilliant. Well, that's great to hear from Robin there about the Head of the Dart, which is an event we started actually locally probably 11, 12 years ago. I think 4 of us did it to start with. I was part of the first crew to do it, and it was 10 miles. It is 10 miles, the Head of the Dart, when you actually do it. And I remember thinking that was just a ridiculously long distance to paddle on a paddleboard. You know, I'd never really gone that far. And then now I look at it and go...
Well, you said, just before we went live, you said, well, everyone, paddles 10 miles now, as if it's nothing. I mean, last time I paddled 10 miles was a few years ago.
But it's great how you could you just build up to it. And I think that the virtual Head of the Dart that Robin went through there, you can do as little as you want, as much as you want. And it's a great way to start, getting up the miles and potentially doing it and getting involved in a bigger thing. So if you are interested in doing it, please do get onto their website there, headofthedart.wordpress.com.
It'd be what an achievement to do all those rivers around the world. Longest river in every continent. I mean, it's an adventure in its own right almost, and the fact that there's just going to be a really international community pulling together and really trying to achieve something there.
So going from 10 miles to I don't know how many miles. We should ask Justin about how he's getting on with his plans for his Antarctic expedition.
I must say I'd like to do that with you guys. Maybe I can come down and do a bit with you two.
Absolutely.
Training.
I mean, how like we were saying, how you go from 10 miles to, I think, is it 2,000 miles your next mission?
2,400 miles it is, coast to coast of Antarctica.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really fun trip. Normally on my trips, I try and raise money for various things, either wounded soldiers. I've taken wounded soldiers off on various trips.
They've agreed, though.
Is all, this one is all, kicking and screaming. This one is all around science, really, and research. And I think that, I've been, as I said, I've been very lucky, and you said I've been to the corners as well. But rather sadly, I've seen, a lot of the things that we are now hearing more and more about, ice melting up in the Arctic. I think I'm in quite a position to sort of highlight that story a bit more, really. So I'm going to try and do that on this one. So it's around sort of climate change and sustainability as well. And we're going from one side of Antarctica right into the middle of Antarctica, a place called the Pole of Inaccessibility, and then to the other side. And if you that the actual landmass of Antarctica is about 1.5 times the size of North America. So the whole trip, it's like going from London to Rome, and then from Rome back to London.
Wow!
And we're kiting. We're man-hauling and we're kiting, and we're a team of 2. And as you said, George, it's we're doing the research is being sort of coordinated through some really stellar institutions, including NASA and the European Space Agency. And basically, the two of us, the guy I'm doing it with, Jamie, and I think we're going to be the most highly tested individuals on the planet this year. So yeah, no, it's really fun. I must say, it's a big trip. It's a really exciting trip.
I mean, where to start on that? It's absolutely huge. But in terms of actually the travel component, let's look at that in isolation. In terms of the travel component, kite skiing. When you say kiting, kite skiing, I guess. How flat is Antarctica? You know, how much do you think it's going to be manhole?
Well, so it's there. Obviously, on top of Antarctica is a huge ice cube. And in fact, not many people know this. 90% of the world's fresh water is in that ice cube.
Wow. Okay.
And it's up to it's about 11,000 feet when you get onto the top of it. So it's pretty high. And so when getting up there, you've got to be quite careful. It's an active sort of glacier, so there's lots of crevasses as you go up. So you ski up quite carefully. Obviously, we're pulling very big hulks. We've got up to 80 days of fuel and food and all the other bits and pieces we'll need. And then when you get onto the top, it's actually quite flat.
Right.
But it's almost as if you took a fairly nice day on the sea where you are, when there was about 15 knots of wind, and suddenly some of this freezes.
Yeah.
But you get this sort of undulating frozen ice waves, really, which are but it's very solid. It's like concrete.
Yeah.
So it's interesting skiing. But the thing with kiting, which is great, is obviously if the conditions are right, you can cover quite a lot of distance. I mean, you can go. So it's going to be interesting.
I have to ask, what happens if there is no wind?
Then you manhole. You just have to manhole. And what happens in Antarctica is you have too much wind.
Yeah.
And the average temperatures, the average temperature we'll probably have will be about minus 35, which you think your freezer's minus 14 to 16. Makes for quite interesting travel.
It's not for you, obviously. You've been to the North Pole, 5 times now?
I've been up to the Arctic 4 times and to Antarctica 4 times.
Okay, so you're kind of, I guess, used to those conditions if you can be used to those conditions. But right now, what does your training schedule look like? Because obviously, can you replicate any sort of conditions here? How are you starting to train for that?
So, I mean, ideally, I'd be in Norway now. I'd go to Norway for about 6 weeks and just ski and kite all the time. And obviously, we haven't been able to do that. Yeah. I think it helps because obviously I have some experience. I mean, the ridiculous thing is I hate the cold. As I said, I grew up in the Mediterranean. I like the sea and being in my budgie smuggler. But yeah, I think the most important thing is that Jamie and I both understand operating in those kind of conditions, and I suppose it's similar to some of the sort of extreme paddling that you guys have done, sea kayaking, sea paddling. You have to understand the environment you're working in to understand how to operate, properly and safely in it. To answer your question, I'm just training. I drag tires every day here. I go out dragging for about 2 or 3 hours, and I'm just getting strong. Really, I'm trying to get my core strong. And you do what you do. I mean, everyone's in the same boat. Really, restricted to being at home. But it's fine. I'm just training very hard. Actually, it's true.
Is it self training, or do you have a trainer who's kind of replicating the sleds and stuff?
No. Just do it myself. Really.
Oh right, cool.
Are you using paddleboarding at all in the training? Are you getting a chance to get out on the board?
I have literally. So we have a house in the Mediterranean, so I spend quite a lot of time there. And when I'm there, I will paddleboard every day for a good hour or 2 hours.
Right.
And I cannot tell it's such a brilliant way to get your core strong.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge advocate for it. It's the most fantastic way of getting strong.
The good thing about when it comes to training on the paddleboard is that, you know, because it's experience, I think it's experience-driven sport. You're looking at what's around you and you're covering distance kind of fairly easily, or at least without really thinking about it. So when I was talking about being the Divisor to Westminster, that first day of doing 30-something miles, actually, apart from getting tired, the first you get quite a good buzz from it. You're seeing all the different sites go by. You don't kind of realise you're getting tired, and then you finish. You go, well, I am knackered. I'm done in. But because it's not like lifting weights in a gym, which is just completely repetitive, and the scene never changes. The scene is ever changing, I guess, when, you know, on your paddleboard. So it's quite a good way, isn't it, of getting out and getting some distance.
Yeah, I think, as you rightly said at the beginning, it's a fantastic way to start getting the sort of catalysts and turn on of travel, of adventure, and being, you know, you're master of your own destiny. You can, you know, I think I know very few things apart from the first bicycle you have. You know, when you get your first bike, you're like, oh my God, I can go.
Yeah.
And there's something about, you know, most people look at rivers or the sea and they're always slightly apprehensive. And you realise that you've got this very stable, very cool vehicle to take you on amazing little, you know, trips and adventures. I mean, I really sincerely mean this. I think it's a very powerful, cool thing to get into people's lives. I think, certainly now we're going to need it. People are going to need it much more once they bust out of the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a few questions coming, actually. I'm just wary of time because we could spend all night chatting about adventures and things. But let's have a look here. I've got a question here coming in from Jonathan on our Facebook stream. He's saying, in preparation for the Everest climb, did you climb any of the other 8,000-meter peaks?
No, I didn't.
All in.
I was actually quite new. I was quite new to climbing big mountains. I climbed a lot in Europe, so things like the Matterhorn and Mont Blanc and various other mountains here. I'd done some climbing in South America. I climbed Huascarán, and so I'd sort of been quite high, but not any of the 8,000 meters. No. Okay. I went in fresh on that.
Brilliant. And I think you kind of answered, but I'll ask it just so Danny doesn't feel like she's being ignored. But Danny is asking, she's saying, how are you making the most of this weird time, finding adventure? I think you said a bit of it already.
It's a good question, Danny. I mean, I travel an awful lot. I share a fantastic travel company called Duro, and so I'm away an enormous amount of my year. And it's been, to be honest with you, it's been very nice for me to be at home with my kids. And I've sort of, rather strangely, thoroughly enjoyed a bit of a slower paced life. I'm starting to get, I think like everyone, I'm starting to get a little bit itchy to get out. And I mean, it's funny just looking at, you know, I'd like to go and do some paddling. That would make me very happy.
Yeah. I'm going to just touch quickly on Duro, actually, Justin. It's B Corp or corporation, isn't it? You've just got signed up on that. How do you go about getting that from a travel side of things? That sounds pretty cool.
Well, the same way that, you know, B Corp stands for a set of guidelines about how a company runs with regard to its responsibility on doing business for the good of everyone, your employees, to your providers, and it's more about purpose than profit, really. Yeah. And we're super proud, actually. We're the first sort of luxury travel company to have it, and I think more and more organisations are sort of realising that it's the way to go forward. Your clients require it, and are sort of aspiring for us all to put something back into looking after the earth and the world and being more responsible. We're really pleased. I'm really pleased.
A great question here from Jules. Hi, Jules, on our Facebook page, saying, what 3 things can you not travel without?
Oh, great question.
Hi, Jules. I think your sense of humour, one, is very important. On all these mad things. I think I think a very good camera is essential. I mean, lucky enough to go somewhere which is extraordinary, try and take some pictures and memories to bring back. And I will never not travel without I have a lovely old Leatherman that I've had for years and years and years. It's got me out of so many scrapes, and it's a bit of a talisman for me now. So I'd be very upset if I didn't have that with me.
Brilliant. So sense of humour, a knife, and a camera. It's pretty essential.
Yeah, and budgie smugglers.
And your budgie smugglers.
Yeah, definitely. Smugglers go everywhere with me.
and once you get there, Jonathan is saying, how do you prepare yourself mentally for the isolation of whether it's the Antarctic or the Arctic?
Yeah.
Another good question. I think I was sort of destined to do these sort of things because I'm not very bright, so I don't really ask myself very many questions when I'm there because it can be very mundane and very dull. It's strange. I like being with people, and so most of the trips I do tend to be part of a team. I take a team along with me. On this trip, obviously, the next one I'm doing, the coast to coast, I've got Jamie, and I think that helps enormously. I mean, if you share experiences, painful ones and the highs of what these trips can bring sometimes, I think that makes a huge difference. I think it's important.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I mean, and I guess there's that safety in numbers thing as well, isn't it? It's not only safety is your own, if you fall over, someone to pick you up, but it's a kind of that almost a mental safety, I suppose, like you said, to pick you up and sort of keep you going on.
Lockdown's been good training.
Lockdown's been good training. Yeah.
It's a funny one. I kind of get the solo stuff because I think wanting to be self-sufficient and good enough to sort of encompass the whole kind of scenario you're in. I understand that, but I think it's a crying shame not to see something which is magnificent and be able to say to someone, wow, look at that sunset, or whatever it might be. I think I've missed that too much, and certainly as I get older, the more I kind of love having people around and seeing them grow. Really, I think one of the fabulous things about these sort of trips, and it, as you said, it doesn't have to be to a sort of extreme level, but whatever you do, you will always come back having learned something, and I think that's really nice from my perspective. Seeing other people grow now and falling in love with the aspect of testing themselves and learning, really.
Great.
Brilliant. We've got I think two more questions, and one from Niall actually on our US page, and it goes back to your comment about paddleboarding and training with paddleboard and core strength. He says, do you find it just builds your core strength just from paddling, or are you doing anything specific when you're paddling in certain movements or techniques?
I think just paddling, but I mean, I do try. I try and do some kind of exercises while I am paddling. Like I'll sort of be paddling, I'll just stop, and then I'll feel on one knee, and then on two knees, then back onto one knee, and then back up, and then I'll continue paddling again. I have used the Voyager as a form of training. I like that, and I love that balance thing. When you're fighting, you obviously are in one position, but it's quite easy that you can lose your balance. You can catch a ski edge or something. And I think that being able to micromanage that movement, and I kind of feel that paddling, the uncertainty of your weight and sea state is rather a good way to sort of help with.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I think that's it from the questions, mostly from what I can see here. But a few people saying that our compact board, when we have a board that packs down to half the size, has really opened up the kind of ability to travel and explore a bit more, which is a very good point, not necessarily related to the South Pole. But no, obviously we wholeheartedly agree about that fact, that yes, and that's really, I think, where the compact board came from for us, is how can you get to places you can't normally get to more easily and take a paddleboard with you, and that's where the compact board that we have in the range is is really helped that. And that does sound like a very obvious plug, but I promise you I wasn't planning on talking about that. It just come up
Funny enough, what we could do is I should take one with me, and because it is coast to coast, we are starting on the sea and we're finishing on the sea. And I should paddleboard at the beginning and the other end of the trip.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're cutting it short by 4 miles or something.
Yeah, literally.
In terms of the trip, when you're going, can people follow it? What's the story there?
Yes, so we head down to Antarctic at the end of last week in October this year.
Right.
The trip will start at the beginning of November up to sort of 80 days. And the best way to follow it at this stage is just through my Instagram, which is Justin Packshaw.
Okay, great. Well, we'll definitely be tuning in. I mean, yeah, it's one of those places which it seems like a distant sort of mirage, the way you've explained it. I can hardly imagine it, but it does sound phenomenal. So, yeah, I'll definitely be tuning in. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Justin. I think, like John said, we could be talking all night, and I think the guys on Facebook probably could be asking questions all night as well. So, yeah, thank you very much for your time, and good luck with all the training from all of us here, and also, I'm sure, iterated from the Red Paddle Go community. Good luck with the trip.
Yeah, thank you very much, Justin.
Thank you, thanks John, thanks George, absolute stars all of you, well done, and hopefully we'll talk when on the backside of it all.
Yeah, very good.
Good luck, and stay in touch. Thank you very much.
Ciao.
See you later.
Guys. Thanks.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's great, isn't it? To kind of think how paddleboarding is helping him get out and train, but also, yeah, just adventures. I just love I love an adventure.
It's phenomenal to hear about, especially in lockdown. Just to dream of those big adventures, just Justin's passion and the fact he's been there and done it all is just phenomenal. So yeah, it's definitely got me fired up.
And I go back to the point that adventures don't have to be actually going to the South Pole or going to the Antarctic. And actually, when you first get on a paddleboard, just paddling around the corner to the next beach or up the river or along the canal to the next lock gate is actually an adventure in itself.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we want to encourage. Hopefully everyone is getting into the sport. I've mentioned it on the call there with Justin. It's an experience-driven sport. It's not necessarily all about technique. Obviously, technique helps you, but it's not all about technique. It's about what you experience, what you see, how you integrate with the surroundings around you. And I think I did actually put a little post out on our Facebook page, on our British UK Facebook page in the start of the week, where this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere, the weather is starting to become good, the spring weather is starting to become good, and it tempts you out onto the paddleboard. And if you are able to, if you can, and particularly with the lockdown restrictions in various locations, if you are able to get paddling, it's a great way of just de-stressing and getting out. But I do really implore everyone to do it safely.
Yeah.
And you need the right kit. You need to be aware of your locations, checking the weather forecasts, checking for weather conditions, telling someone where you're going, what time you're going to be back, and what to do when you don't turn up. If you are going to be late for whatever reason, normally you're late because you've gone to the pub. Can't do that right now. But if wherever you're going to be late, let your contact know so they don't raise the alarm and get the emergency services out for no particular reason. And check your kit as well. Make sure you've got the right kit with you. Make sure you've got your leash, the right type of leash for the right type of locations. And we'll put a link in the comments actually about a little safety video we made last year. But I did a little post about it earlier in the week. But I think it's worth reminding everyone because this time of year is fantastic paddleboarding conditions. When the weather is good, just be careful. Cold water is a nasty thing if you get it wrong. So dress for the conditions, but as Justin says, you can have an adventure close to home. You don't have to drag a tire around your.
It's almost the same, isn't it? Prepare for the worst, but ultimately it's going to plan for the best as well. And the fact that you'll have a brilliant time if you can get out.
So we really look forward to seeing and hearing more about your adventures as you go into the season, as we get more free to paddle, and whether they're 1 mile or 10 miles, it doesn't matter. I think it's just great to share that, and thank you so much for everyone who does share that. And if you want to share it to the paddleboarding community and the Red Paddleboarding community, then please do check out the Red Paddle Co board owners group on Facebook. Just search for it, you'll find it. There's a great community of growing, very rapidly fast-growing community of paddlers on there, sharing advice and tips, and quite often sharing those adventure paddling tips.
Yeah, the group is full of people who just love the sport. So definitely check it out. And also check out that Head of the Dart challenge. Obviously, the more people can do it, I just think it's a really good opportunity throughout April and May just to sign up to something, have a little bit of accountability. As lockdown's lifted and we can get out there, just to take on your own challenge. Maybe hopefully socially distance with some friends later on in May, and you could have yourself a really good challenge which is just combined into this international community. So yeah, do check out that website we talked about earlier. And we've actually got a little bit of the video we saw at the beginning. We're going to play the full length one now. So our brand new video talking about our never compromise messaging. And we'll see you in another 2 weeks for another one of these, and look forward to it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for joining us, and see you soon.